The president got coronavirus, or CCP virus, as we call it at the Epoch Times. What are your impressions of what happened here?
Well, ultimately, you go to the source. I don't know the origin of this disease, whether it was cooked in a lab or whether it was naturally occurring, but we do know that Xi Jinping, starting in December, took steps that he knew or should have known would lead to the spread of the disease beyond China's borders. So I believe that China infected Trump. Now, one can say that the American response has not been as quick as it should have been, and there's going to be a lot of debate over that. But we do know that even once China admitted the contagiousness of the disease after denying it, that it tried to downplay the severity of the situation. And that led countries, including the United States, not to take precautions that they otherwise would have. Dr. Deborah Birx in her March 31 press conference talked about being deceived by Chinese statistics, and so has Dr. Anthony Fauci. So this is a CCP virus, as you call it.
So, well, this is actually an interesting question in itself. I think the president has called it China virus. We call it CCP virus. Why do you think CCP virus is appropriate?
Well, it's really a Communist Party event. This is something that the Communist Party is responsible for. One could say the general country is responsible for it, but clearly the Communist Party is. And so therefore, calling it the Communist Party virus or CCP virus is precise.
So, and also, I'm just thinking here now, Secretary of State Pompeo has made a point of separating the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people in his speeches and his various discussions and so forth.
Yeah, in Pompeo's landmark July 23 address at the Nixon Library, he talked about actually engaging the Chinese people. He called it in-person diplomacy, and that's important. We got to remember that nothing drives the Communist Party so insane as suggestions that countries will talk to the Chinese people and bypass the Communist Party. We need to do everything possible to delegitimize the party, and speaking to the Chinese people is an important element of that initiative.
So, do you see the CCP interfering in the election, given what we've just talked about and possibly other areas?
Well, it already has. We have seen these large Chinese networks, one of them called Spamouflage Dragon, relentlessly attacking the president on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We know that the Foreign Ministry and the Global Times have been engaged in a malicious disinformation campaign against the American government on a number of matters, including coronavirus. We know about these fake Chinese accounts. Twitter took down 174,000 of them in June. The list goes on and on. But also, in addition to trying to directly unseat the president, there are these reports that China has been trying to foment violence in the United States this year. There's that Radio Free Asia report that says that intelligence unit of the People's Liberation Army based themselves in the now closed Houston consulate, and there they used big data to identify Americans likely to participate in Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests. And then the PLA sent them videos on how to riot. There are all of these unconfirmed reports, but there's so many of them that at the night of May 31st, morning of June 1st, in the violent protest just north of the White House on 16th Street, that was the night that St. John's was burned. There are a number of Chinese who were talking in Mandarin, apparently acting in coordination, and overheard mentioning about the Communist Party or the Chinese government organizing them. Those remain unconfirmed, But they do mirror reports we've seen from Chinese participating in protests in Los Angeles and in other Southern California locations. So there's a lot of room to investigate what the Communist Party and what the Chinese government has indeed been doing this spring.
So, you've responded to numerous posts by Hu Xijin, the chief editor of the Global Times, one of the Chinese state mouthpieces, about the issue of the president getting coronavirus. I was looking in your feed. I saw a lot of the tweets that the editor made are unavailable now. But what is this commentary about? What is the narrative that you're responding to here?
Yeah, well, Global Times is Communist Party media, technically, because it's controlled by People's Daily, so it's not Chinese state. But
very true. Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah. What the Global Times was doing is it was engaging in "I told you so" journalism. It was triumphalist. It was derogatory. It was sneering. And about a day later, Global Times took down the tweets because it understood that it was not doing China any good. And then we started to see the softer tone from the foreign ministry and then from Xi Jinping himself. But the initial reaction is, I believe, more indicative of how the party actually feels about this. They realized it wasn't playing well, so they took it down. But that was mere tactics.
Yeah. So triumphalist. In a nutshell, what were they saying in your view?
I don't have the exact tweet in front of me because they did take it down.
Yes.
But they were. It was essentially along the lines of "We told you so." Your response to the coronavirus was incompetent. It's that type of Communist Party is superior, that type of thing.
But given what you've said earlier about the Chinese Communist Party's culpability on this, I mean, it just seems bizarre to be saying something like this.
I don't think truth has ever really stood in the way of Communist Party media.
Okay.
Well, there's another thing that can be said, and that is that if the Communist Party were competent in reading the moods of Americans, we'd really be in trouble. So, it's just, a revolutionary organization just is not sensitive to human concerns. It's just an inhumane organization. So they end up oftentimes with these media initiatives which are so counterproductive.
Fascinating. Hey, actually, this just reminds me also, you have a tweet that says, "Fight for America as if your life depended on it," because it does. What are you, there's so many things this could refer to. What are you saying here?
I'm saying that our republic is at risk. We cannot assume that we're going to survive this, and we've got to fight because we have enemies that mean us harm right now. And, of course, at the top of the list is China, which is not only an enemy because it told us it's our enemy, but also it's powerful and it's acting to bring down our republic as we speak. So this is a critical time for us. We have this notion that, we're the United States. We'll get through this. Well, I hope we will, but we've got to fight for it. So that's my point. And,
sort of in the same vein, there's this order recently to, I believe this is something that was in place in the U.S. for a while, basically to exclude Communist Party and other totalitarian party members, wherever they may be, from getting immigrant visas to America. What is your take on this? There's been a lot of discussion in different directions about the effectiveness and frankly the nature of this order.
There's nothing wrong with delegitimizing the Communist Party. I believe that we should be denying party members entry to our country, whether immigrant or non-immigrant visas. I think that we should expel party members who are here. I think, given everything, we have a right to imprison them. So I'm very happy with strict measures, and I think we need to go further.
What would be required for someone, because, of course, there's a lot of people who are, part of the Communist Party of China. What would be required for a person who was a member of the Communist Party or is a member of the Communist Party to gain access to the U.S. in your mind?
Renounce membership.
And do you think that would be, so you could have all sorts of people just sort of, cynically doing that just to get in, right?
Yes, of course. And that's going to be, visa officers all the time try to judge the sincerity of statements made on visa applications and during interviews. And we'd have to do that, of course. But I think that it would be an absolute requirement that no current members of the Communist Party be admitted, except perhaps for diplomats, which is covered by the Vienna Convention. But I'm not entirely unhappy, if the United States were to say, you can send a diplomat as long as he or she's not a member of the Communist Party. I don't have a problem with that. But, diplomats do fall into a special category. But everybody else, if you're a member of the Communist Party, you're just not entering our country. You're a member of an organization that who seeks the overthrow of the U.S. government. I just don't see a reason for allowing you into our country. It's that simple. We can overthink these things.
Right.
We need to delegitimize the Communist Party. This is one way to do it. I'm not saying that we are going to deny entry to people who should be here. I can understand that. There's all sorts, every individual presents a unique situation. But I'm saying there's a bright line. Sometimes you need to defend yourselves with bright lines. And this is a bright line action that I think we should take.
There's a consistent cacophony of voices basically saying the opposite of what you're saying, basically saying that if we, limit the entry of Chinese into America, it's going to create all sorts of problems. I mean, I'm not going to go list them out. You know them better than I do, frankly. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, of course, that's right. I mean, any ban like this is going to result in situations where people, of course, there are costs to the United States, but there are no no-cost solutions, especially at this point. And so we need to defend ourselves. And we may overreact, but we need to start taking measures to protect the United States of America and our society from an onslaught from the Communist Party. Maybe afterwards we get this under control. We can think of relaxing the measures we take. But right now we're in an emergency situation. So I believe that emergency solutions are called for in this situation.
Okay. Well, wonderful, Gordon. Thank you for taking the time.